be a racist and lie on your neighbors? Welcome to Eviction, Population U.
Okay, I'll share another revenge. I'm only vengeful when someone deserves it, and that's usually often, so I'll share one I did from 2011. Anyone who has seen my post know I used to work in the private security field. Not mall cops, but highly trained and skilled in armed security. We worked residential buildings and complexes that were very high-end. Like $200,000 cars in the parking garage is high-end. Now places like this are Karen Central. Imagine apartments full of Karens and entitled teenagers. Now the company owner was awesome. A cop is his regular job. He understood what we faced. His advice was to be nice but put the hammer down if you have to and don't take their shit. Also that if we didn't get 2 complaints a month about us for worthless shit that weren't engaging the residents enough. Lol. So, this is important to the revenge. Each supervisor had 10 to 15 properties under their control. Regular officers patrolled them, but we were in charge of helping with evictions, attending town halls on security issues, deciding how an officer patrols or updating what areas are being a problem or needing checked. I had 12. Now in this one apartment complex we had a couple always calling us. We has an emergency line open from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. When we get there they cry about their upstairs neighbor. It was a list of things they just changed. Stomping, music, talking, cooking smells, their dog going number 1 on the balcony and it dripping onto theirs. Valid complaints. If we found evidence, and we never did. When they seen we were starting to question if they were real, they changed tactics and went racist. The couple above them were a sweet and wonderful middle-aged Asian couple. Husband was an immigrant, but the wife was a born and raised American. These racist creatins had only talked to the husband, so they assumed, as all racists do, that they were both immigrants. This white sheet-wearing couple started making comments like, "Those Asians, and they're in America. Why can't they cook American food?" And "I'm afraid to be in the parking garage when one of them is driving in it." While it angered me, those comments alone weren't enough for an eviction. Only thing I could do was have my officers put exact phrasing in the report. I did ask the property manager about the comments, and she said if they didn't say them to the residents and the residents didn't complain, there wasn't much she could do. So I tried to think of some way to get them evicted. Not only were they lying to get a couple evicted, but were calling in false things and wasting the officers' time to respond. And they didn't call just every once in a while. They called sometimes twice in on night, usually 5 to 8 times a week. So a month later the opportunity was handed to me. The Asian couple called me during the day and informed me they were going out of the country, China, for 2 weeks, and no one would be in their apartment. They told me this just in case the other couple start complaining I would know they were lying, and asked to check their door once a night to make sure it was locked and not broken into. I informed the Asian couple to not tell their neighbor, none of them, that they were leaving, and besides myself only tell the property manager. We had a patrol meeting that night. Officers didn't work one specific region, so I told them all my plan. I wanted them to respond each time they call and write down exactly what they said happened, and also any racial terms, no matter how minor. Mark the report urgent and send it out. We had an online system for all business, email, schedules, report submitting. You get the idea. So away we go. During those 14 days they complained 18 times. Everything was documented and I took it to the manager. She looked it over and said, "Let's evict them." Side note, the client gets charged more for emergency response than they do for regular patrols, meaning their lies were costing more. So, there was no wall because they were rentals. In this situation myself, the property manager and the tenant sit down at a table. The charges for eviction are read. If the eviction of security related, then I say what violations have been broken, etc. Not opinions. Just facts based on the reports which the tenants get a copy of. Then the tenants have a right to speak and ask questions. The property manager then decides what happens next. Do they stay or do they go? So they were sent a formal letter stating they were facing eviction and had 10 days to set up a meeting. If not, the eviction will be processed. They set one up. I get there and the asshole couple and the manager are already present. The wife immediately digs into me because I was armed. Uniforms for those situations are a dress shirt, slacks, tie and one weapon and one magazine. Thing PS, like elections can be dangerous. I just politely informed her that it was my uniform and not her call to make. She tried to say she felt uncomfortable and wanted to reschedule, but the manager said this happens now or I will evict you. So they agreed to continue. Now for legal reasons these sessions were recorded by video. That way the tenant can't lie in eviction court or sue. In front of me were all 18 reports and went over each one. Time, date, who called, apartment number. I also read out each line telling them to tell me what they feel is false and what is true. The only thing they said, the racial terms weren't true. At the end of each report I basically said the report is accurate in the fact that tenants in apartment XYZ were playing their music too loud, but you are claiming the comments about their race are false. I got a yes answer every time. About the 7th one I think the wife caught one. She started complaining that I was dragging it out. I just smiled politely and reminded her that this was my time and she ample opportunity to object and ask me questions, but only after I was done, and then went through the rest and let them build a defense. Then after I was done getting the admit to lies, I informed them that tenants in said apartment were actually out of the country at the time of those 18 reports and that the tenants provided proof that they were gone, and my officers checked the apartment one time a night and confirmed that it was empty. Then I smiled pleasantly and ended my part. But the look on their face was a mix of anger and fear. They didn't have a defense. Basically saying, myself and the manager were choosing immigrants over Americans. Oh, did I mention the manager is an immigrant? That went over like a hand grenade in a collection plate. Once they said that she stopped it and told them she was. That made matters worse because they said she was just taking up for her own kind. During this I'm calm and collected. Inside my mind I am thinking, oh shit. After a few more racial remarks the manager just stopped them and said guilty and she would process the eviction paperwork with the courts in the morning. Long story short, they were given 14 days. From what I heard the judge gave them 30 until they called him a racial name. I was able to call the nice Asian couple and let them know that it was over and they didn't have to worry because we would no longer respond to calls about their apartment for the next 14 days until eviction came through and the bad tenants left. But they were welcome to call anytime if they need help or have an issue. Security officers want to help so bad, but are limited by either laws, property management rule or both, so it is nice to do some good. Update. Thanks for the awards everyone. I debated even posting this and didn't expect it to blow up as it has. I love this. You are doing awesome work doing your job, but also standing up for the little guy and yourself. If it doesn't reveal too much, may I ask, what city is this? For context, the judge gave them 30 until they called him a racial name. Some people just never learn. Shakes head. This same thing happened to us. Asian wife, white husband, no kids, no pets, asleep by 10 p.m. every night. His hubby was an early sleeper. The elderly white lady living below us complained all the time to the apartment complex. We came back from an overseas vacation to find our Brass Island guardians had been stolen, worth over $500. And we had 3 letters saying we were going to be evicted for noise complaints. I stormed to the apartment manager's office with a hotel receipt and plane tickets in our name for The 2 weeks and 3 days the complaints about noise were made, just to prove a point that we were not even in the country at that time. Came out with a formal apology, although I was tempted to ask for a month's free rent considering the slander. She must have said something because we received no more complaints. 2 months later the elderly Karen that lived below us moved out. IDKY, but was happy since it was good riddance to that crazy old lady with hearing issues. Please post this also in our Tales from Security. Most guards really get off on stories like this. They love it there. Wait a minute. Your former post said that you worked in the military for 21 years until 2017, but now you say you worked for private security? So which one is it? Went over like a hand grenade in a collection plate. I love that phrase, and will be using it now. Thank you. You have enriched my life. Credence. And I fucking love it when someone has their ducks lined up against a clueless, overconfident opponent. Great story. A few spelling errors tripped me up, but a good read. Kinda wanted them to find out that no one had been home the entire time. Also, what were you able to call? It just cuts out there at the end. Till there's an eviction court. So does that slot go in between Judge Jerry and couples court with the Cutlers? If we didn't get 2 complaints a month about us. Literally laughed out loud. That's the perfect way to show how your boss was. That went over like a hand grenade in a collection plate. This is a beautiful turn of phrase. Sounds like the ingrates should have low mind. Lying got them kung poet. They're in America. Why can't they cook American food? These are the same people that think P.F. Chang's is authentic Chinese cuisine. This happened to my parents in the 80s. My dad was attached to my country's, a country from Southeast Asia, permanent mission to the UN, so was my parents. 3 girls aged 5 years to 11 months and 1 helper. My mom had back problems and found out later she had a slipped disc. Living in a nice apartment with a great view of the river that wasn't too far from the UN. The family living across from us would complain daily about us saying stuff like we'd leave trash out in the hallway for hours before throwing it away. Me and my sister would knock on their front door for no reason. We'd pull their laundry from the machines and use the machine to wash ours, etc. My dad of course denied the allegations. I think at that time my dad's position was what really helped, and the management investigated. My parents loved traveling and socializing, so we'd just go on these sudden weekend trips or spend the whole day with family friends away from the apartment. Quite a number of complaints happened on dates that were later confirmed my family was away. The family ended up being evicted and a nicer couple moved in. The only thing I can say after that story is that you are a FC King legend. Tangentially related, I recently moved into a new apartment just as lockdown started. I was getting slammed with bass by my downstairs neighbor. This went on for 6 months. I would make complaints. The leasing office would talk to the tenant, but nothing would improve. I would call the office to come when it started, but for several months they couldn't enter the apartments and no other neighbors complained and nothing was audible from outside. Once restrictions eased a little, they could enter with masks and distancing. I tried having them come hear it, but it would always stop before they got here. Since it was only bass, my cell mic never picked it up well. Months of constant on and off bass, intense enough to get through earplugs, but only I heard it. I began suffering anxiety, sleeping poorly, and genuinely questioning my sanity. I was that tenant complaining over nothing. One day, someone from the leasing office was over for an unrelated item and the bass started. She heard it. I wasn't crazy. After several talks, it turns out that the downstairs neighbor had their TV wall mounted on an internal wall, not shared with any neighbors to either side. And the bass from the TV was shaking the wall, affecting his ceiling, my floor. The volume was normal, but due to how it was mounted, I was getting all the bass feedback in my apartment. He had no idea that was happening. We got it sorted and it's all resolved now. But 6 months of complaints unable to prove anything. That struck a chord with me. Of course I wasn't a racist asshole about it.
Bravo.
The most satisfying revenge tales are those where the villains are given the free rein to set themselves up for the fall. Beautiful. They were given 14 days. From what I heard, the judge gave them 30 until they called him a racial name. This is the cherry on top. I love this. Great story, really enjoyed that one, smiley face.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.